we said, you know, Chester, like, you know what the old people used to say, you know, anything you can do, you can imagine, anything you can do. And because I came to the lodge with a tear, I learned a lot. I learned fast. I absorbed a lot because that's what helps you communicate better is your emotion with the grandfathers, and they listen and they hear you and they cry for you. So when Daddy told me that, he says, anything you can imagine, you can do. That's what the old people say. Anything you can imagine, you can do. If you can imagine it, you can do it. And I said, and he says, because of your spirit and path. It has so much power. It had so much power before it came into this shell. And it still has power, but you have to wake it up. You have to fast, you have to pray, you have to meditate, you have to be kind, you have to be good to people, you have to become a good human being. And then the world opens up to you, and you can accomplish anything you can imagine.
Join me as we deep dive into the life of Chester Knight and his inspiring journey. Learn about his early days in the music industry, his struggles with alcoholism, and how he overcame them through Indigenous culture and through ceremony. This podcast will leave you with a new appreciation for the power and determination of the human spirit. And there'll be some laughs in there too. Well, awesome, Chester. It's great to see you, man. I'm really excited to have you on the show, and thanks for coming on.
I'm glad to be here. I'm very happy to be here.
Take us back to the beginning. I want to know, like, where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up? And what was that like for you?
Well, when I was growing up, fortunately and unfortunately, my parents went to the residence with my grandparents. That was the unfortunate part. The fortunate part is one of them learned to play the piano. They were my grandfather. And he taught my mother, and my mother taught my father. And my mother tried to teach me piano, but I wasn't really good at it. Like I could learn the notes and everything, but I learned what she did teach me is the laws of music. I was able to. I didn't understand them at the time, but as I grew up, as I started to get involved with the music, then I started to intrinsically understand how the process of music begins, how it starts, and how it's ordered. So this was a really good experience for me. Now my parents also, I have to, my parents gave me a lot of gifts, and I'll never turn my back on those gifts. Um, and one of them was personality, and another one was confidence, and another one was ability to strive and not to give up. But they're not the only ones. Uh, so my father couldn't sing because wherever we were singing, because they went to church, whenever he was singing behind me, he I just thought he just had the most horrible voice. My mother could sing. My mother could sing. That's where I captured some of her gifts, and my ancestors could sing too. Powwow and on the Métis side. Music, standard music, and things like that. We went to a reunion up in Wanda, and there was just so many relatives from my mother's side that just were beautiful singers from her Métis side, and they had beautiful voices. Yeah, and my on their side too, my great grandfather was also deaf, but he played music. In fact, his claim to fame is he danced with Helen Keller. So, yeah, so it's genetic. It's genetic process. It skips generations. It skipped the generation for me, and I was fortunate. My brothers all play; they're all musicians, but they're not accomplished musicians. They're just like to have fun. And my other younger brother, Malcolm, I said, Malcolm, why didn't you pursue a career in music like I did? He says, well, I just wasn't interested in doing that. But he's a good songwriter. I'm going to put one of his songs on my next album. But some people are just not driven to achieve that. Uh, so we were a poor family. We, like everyone else, were very poor, right? And my father actually was a politician, and he went to, and he was friends with John Diefenbaker, he lived in Prince Albert. So when John Diefenbaker became prime minister, him and a group of men went to see him, and they went into John Diefenbaker's office. My dad was going to tell them that they needed housing because First Nations didn't have housing in those days. And the lady, the secretary, said, "Well, you should, you just can't come in and see John Diebenbaker. Like, you need to make an appointment, and it's going to take months." And my dad just says, "Well, just tell him it's David Knight." And then she went to tell him, and he came out. He says, "Come on in here." And she told him about the housing problem, and they a few months later they had housing, money available for housing. So he was a strong politician. Anyways, so he's an accomplished person, right? He created the FSIN, which created all the other organizations across the country. Um, yeah, so it's it's like uh, it's like a path you follow. Like my great grandfather was Chief Thunderhead. He was before a long, long time ago, but he had a big head. Anyway, so we've always been in that line of thought. Well, I'm going to stick this in here deep for my ears aren't made for this, so that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my brothers, the the bad thing too that happened also too is that one of my brothers went to residential schools, and the rest of us went to day school, but he went to residential school. This was his age, his time, his era, and when he came back, like he infected the rest of the family with his suffering and his sorrow and all those things. So all my brothers all became alcoholics, including myself. And this is what he brought in the family. And I was just thinking this morning that I remember when I was driving in the car with him and my other brother Peter, and I won't say his name, but he said, oh, it's called O says to my other brother Peter, and he says, "Do you want to go down for a brew?" And my back Peter says, "Yeah." And then so I just said, "Well, why are you guys getting off? Why don't you just get 2 beer in a bag and go?" But it's a casual way of saying let's go
Uh,
get pissed, man.
well, that's
So
the thing, right?
yeah, yeah. So our family was really affected, even though we had a great great parents and great grandparents, like all of us, we had so magnificent great 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 grandparents, and the thing is, it's totally not their fault at all. Maybe they're responsible for the things they did to other people, but it's really not their fault how they came to be that way. But then again, too, a person could argue that I don't want to get into that discussion because it's like, you know, who knows?
No, I understand completely, Chester. I get that, and thank you for for some of that, man. Because even trying to find some of your background, like I say, I'm a huge fan. I've been a bit of a fanboy here, but even trying to find more about you, like just kind of digging around online and things. There's not a lot about your background, a lot of, and not much about those stories. So I really appreciate that, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that about you on here. It's great to hear some of that, really. Um, and again too with those residential stories, it's hard as well because each person went through different things, and each one that's their story to tell or not tell, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's really hard, so I understand that as well. It was great to hear too, all that musical background with your family. And that all makes sense now, right? Like you say, somebody like one person teaches it, another person teaches it. You might not be good at one thing, but you're good at another thing. If you can't sing, you can play. If you can play, you can't sing, or whatever that is, right? So with your brothers, are they all guitar players, or what did you guys have a little band when you were growing up, or how did that look?
Well, the way it worked is my older brothers, there was three sets of ages. The oldest set of ages, there was like three of them. They had a band. They had a band in Duck Lake and in Beardy's. I remember I used to go to those dances, and they were a lot of fun. And I always have this image. I always remember this one image of this woman. She had a great big fur coat on. She took out her hairspray out of her, I mean, her deodorant out of her coat. She went and did her so while she was dancing. I'll never forget that image. But, yeah, and they just had like just little amps. They just had like those little amps you can buy today amps, and they didn't, they didn't have all the equipment that we have today, and they didn't have like you know effects or nothing like that. It was just drums, bass, guitar, you know, and that was it. And so but at that was okay for that time because they were actually just starting to learn music and understand music too. So, but it was great. And then my other brothers, Harvey Vernon, and they had a band when I was 14. And I used to go watch them play at other schools and things like that. And so I started to get involved in music, and I involved myself in was the drums. But I used to like playing the drums. I used to like uh, putting headphones on and just playing those drums and learning the patterns and things like that. I'd like to say I learned the whole in God Vida drum solo, but maybe it's just something I say. Maybe I never did. Maybe I wanted that time. Anyways, but yeah, so I learned, and then one day they saw me drumming, and they let go of their drummer. His name was Ron Shaw, and they hired me. Only because I don't think I was a better drummer. It's just that I was just more disciplined. I followed the patterns and exactly the way they're done on the radio. So I played with them for a while. Yeah. And they ended up, I guess, just not playing anymore. Um, and then after that, then I just, I wasn't a really good musician. Like, I'm not really good at, my son is the musician. His name is Lancelot Knight. He's the musician. He's the one that has the super talent for the guitar. My other son is a bass player. But so they supported me after I fired so many people because they were drinking and stuff like that, and they were already playing already, and I just thought, maybe I'll just take my kids. And they were disciplined. They were totally loyal. No drinking, no alcohol. So it was like dad goes with the children out hunting or things like that. It's the same thing, except you're just traveling all over the USA and Canada. So we developed a strong bond there. But my other brothers, after their band broke up, then I still wanted to play music, but I wasn't a musician. Like I said, I started playing guitar when I was 15, and it was just the chords. And then I wanted to learn music off the radio, but then in those days they just had the 45s, so you had to stop the 45, put it back, stop the 45 to learn the chords and the patterns and lyrics. So I got tired of that, so I just thought, well, and besides, also too, when I listened to music at that time too, I would listen to a song that sounds really great, all of a sudden it really sounds shitty. It had a really good start and it just goes shitty. And I didn't like that. So, so what I did then, I started writing music. When I was 15, I started just creating my own songs and just singing them, things like that. And I actually wrote my first good song, I think when I was 18. It was called See the Indian on the Hill. It's on my first album. And my brother was alive to help me with that. And See the Indian on a Hill is a sad song. And but my brother Peter was telling me, like he died, but he was telling me before that, he said that, that's really a sad song. You should do something positive at the end, make it, give it some hope. I said, sure, okay. So I wrote A Brand New Day, A Brand New Day, and that's how I finished the song. So, and that was when I was 18, and I remember I used to go to parties when I was 21, and I'd be singing that song, and I'd hear rumors that I didn't write that song. So I knew that's a good song.
Yeah, it's good, eh? When people won't give you credit for it. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was asking a few people too around, is like, is there any questions you want to ask like Chester and stuff like that, right? And a few people asked like, you know, most of your songs are either, they're kind of love songs or hurting songs or, breakup songs. Like where does that songwriting come from? Where did you get all that I guess that ammunition we'll call it?
Yeah. Well, a lot has to do with my life, but a lot has to do also too with my recovery. Like when I started drinking when I was 13, and because I was involved in music, I drank lots, did
Yeah.
a lot of drugs, and so when by the time I was 21, I believe I was a clinically chronic alcoholic. So that means like, if you want to stop, you got to go to the hospital. Treatment. That's how bad the disease got back for me.
Yeah.
Because when you're 13 and you drink a lot and you have access to a lot of liquor, every 10 years you drink, it's like every year you drink, it's like 10 years. So by the time I'm 13 and by the time I'm 20, that's 7, 8 years. So that's like, 10 years, that's 80 years of drinking. So that's how fast, because when your body's developing, it just incorporates and just, it's like a great big huge computer just taking in all this data all the time, and absorbing it, right? So alcohol, it absorbs that bad things like alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. And so I really, I really, at that time, that's when I wrote "See the Indian in the Hill," because I really didn't feel that there was any hope for me. My future was full of chagrin. And I remember I used to sit and watch TV, and I'd be seeing the commercials. They'd be like people, just taking off and just traveling, going all over the world and buying things. And I knew I could never buy those things. Yeah. And so that made me drink even more. And it was like, um, I wrote at that time later on when I was going through that process, I wrote Tecumseh when I was getting better a little bit, when I was starting to try and quit drinking. I wrote Tecumseh, I think it was about 22. And now Tecumseh, some people will say, I've heard a lot of criticism, some criticism from people that it's a suicide song. But it's not a suicide song, it's a song of hope. It's a song of calling upon the spirit of Tecumseh. His spirit is your spirit. It's the same spirit. It's just a different time, different era. But spirits don't change over time, right? They're constant. So time didn't change. Um, so I wrote that song when I was about 22, and yeah, it was a very difficult part of my life. And then I started writing more, and a lot of them weren't any good, but some of them were good, so I kept those. And then I was trying to quit. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to rehab a few times. Um, when I was about 25, my uncle came to visit from Muscatine, from Coolies. He knew my dad, and they came to visit. My dad told me my problem. And my uncle, Danny Muskwa, he says, you want to try and come and sweat with me and have a fast? And I said, sure, because I really, really wanted to live. So I did. And from that time, I loved that worldview so much in my the Soto people because I'm Cree.
Mhm.
But the thing about traditions are it's like Munias. They want to make lines, right? They want to say, okay, you're evangelistic, you're Buddha, you're Islam. You guys stay over there. But in our traditions, it's one tradition, right? It's just a different way of saying it, just a different title, it's a different label, but it's all the same because we're all human beings. So it can't be different. So this is why it's easy for us to get captured and become a part of a nation. You know, even the children that the Iroquois, they captured 200 children, and they all became Iroquois, and they never wanted to go home. I think even one of them killed their parents, and he's trying to escape from home. So it's because our philosophy, it's because our way of thinking and our worldview is so sensible and so pure and so uncontaminated to the influence of different people conquering becomes something else, and pretty soon it's not even real anymore. It's a belief. But our system is not a belief, it's a knowledge system. We know, like when a person is like 80 years old, they know. So we say that he knows. He's like in tune with the world. Anyway, so this is what saved me. And my nurse told me, he said to me, he says, his name is Danny Musgrove. I call him a nurse because he's my adopted father too. Yeah. So we said, Chester, like, you know what the old people used to say, anything you can do, you can imagine, anything you can do. And because I came to the lodge with a tear, I learned a lot. I learned fast. I absorbed a lot. Because that's what helps you communicate better is your emotion with the grandfathers, and they listen and they hear you and they cry for you. So what Daddy told me that, he says, anything you can imagine, you can do. That's what the old people say. Anything you can imagine, you can do. If you can imagine it, you can do it. And I said, and he says, because of your spirit, your impact. It has so much power. It had so much power before it came into this shell. And it still has power, but you have to wake it up. You have to fast, you have to pray, you have to meditate, you have to be kind, you have to be good to people, you have to become a good human being. And then the world opens up to you, and you can accomplish anything you can imagine. So he's telling me, and I believed him, and I believe it to be true. I know it to be true. And at that time, I went to a friend of mine's place. His name is William Butler. He used to play with Gulliver's People about the same time as Pink Floyd, and he played in England. Anyways, he became my producer in France. And I went to his place, and I seen his Juno. And when I seen that Juno, I just like went weak in my stomach because I just wanted it so bad. Anyway, and then and then to myself, I imagined that I would get a Juno. I imagined that. This is what I'm going to get. But I didn't tell anybody. I just imagined it and kept that secret to myself. And then it happened. So all the dreams and all the imagination and all the work became true with that Juno. Now, Now, the Juno itself is just an award. But what makes it so important is that you achieved it, that's a personal victory, that you've accomplished something. You know, anything else is a matter of fact after that. And so this is how, when I remember when I was fasting so much and sweating so much, the I would have dreams, I would vision dreams, and I would dream of women from the Andes, like a woman come from behind my sweat, that Danny uh, uh, gave me eventually. Uh, she come from behind my sweat, and she had a guitar, and she was saying, "Okay, like this, okay, like that," and she was telling me how to write this song. And so I wrote it, and that song was "The Thunderbirds Are Flying." Anyway, so when you ask me a question, how do I write the music? I guess, a spiritus sanctus would be a good term because it comes from the spirit, and you have to give credit to the spirits for helping you write that song, for being involved in that wrong, because we don't have the mental capacity to create music by ourselves. I don't, for sure. I don't have the mental capacity to create lyrics and stuff like that. I know that. Because I know who I am. I'm a joker. I like having fun. I like praying. And that's it. But, I like gambling too, of course. But anyways, when I got to Juneau, I gave respect to Shimamitu and first, to Shimamitu, Kukumo, Mushamoa. And because they're the ones, you know. What happens when people start to take ownership of their creativity is they become they're not grounded anymore. You're not grounded anymore. You're like a loose. You're loose because it's got people are just telling you, great, you're good, you're great, so much, and pretty soon you're not any better than anybody else, but you think you are, and that creates conflict within your ego and your personality, and you react to the good fortune that you have. You don't act upon the good fortune that you have. You don't appreciate the good fortune that you have. You don't appreciate the many blessings that you receive. Um, so personally, I think, you know, I've written chants in the past, and one time I asked my news, I said, yeah, well, this is just what he said. I'm just saying what he said. Okay, don't anybody hit me or nothing. I'm just a messenger. He said, I said, Muslim, I mean, News, could I, put a little bit of poem music in here? Just some that. He says, no, you can't do that. But that music was written for that time. So what you have to do is create a music for this time. And so the chants that I create in my songs, they come from the sweats, they come from the grandfathers, and they're created for this time. And I would say this is why they're different than 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 other chants. It's because they come from the sweats. It's because they come from grandfathers. It's because they come from advice from a great man, Lewis. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Lewis because he just passed away 2 weeks ago. My father. He lived in Kansai. And he actually learned from four old people, four philosophers. And I say scientists because they study the pure science is actually the pure discovery of nature. And this is what they did. They studied the stars, they were astronomers. And these were four great men. And Noose was trained by those 4 men. Well, he was hanging around and we give him tea and stuff like that. And but he learned a lot of their philosophy, Danny Musqua. And he he became an honorary doctor at University of Saskatchewan. He belonged to the Menser Institute. So he became very accomplished because of these teachings, because of what these old people teaching. And I'll just, the people that taught him were hiding clothes and Healing Bear and Great Glacier Coming Home and Natural Man. But the people that taught them was an old man named Goodlight. And before that was another old man, Morning Light. And before that was Thunder Lightning Bird. And before that was Strong Beast. Thunder Lightning, Morning Light Hunter was the last official warrior of the Soto Nation. Yeah. So this philosophy comes back. It's back and it's true. And I'm not preaching. I don't want to enter your preaching, but what I'm doing is sharing, because each one of us has that power within us to create themselves into something new than what they are. And it's through fasting. And I asked my mother once, I said, what does, how do you translate fasting into Cree? And she says, well, my mother spoke the old Cree. She called it the high Cree. And she said, Awanowitz. I said, Awanowitz, what's that mean? She says, that means losing yourself. So that statement in itself, that's all she said, if you think about it, it means a lot of things. I think that's losing your old self and becoming a new being. And another thing is, she helped me write this one song called Voices in the Wind. I asked her how you say voices in the wind. And she says, Juten Pixco. And I says, what does that mean, Juten Pixco? It says, oh, that just means like you can hear the wind spirits when it's windy, and you can hear them talking to each other if you listen really close. So that is like a knowledge that is pure, that has been passed to generations. And this knowledge, we really have, well, I don't mean we have to, it's our responsibility to take it upon ourselves to bring our nation back. I mean, yeah, we all suffered a lot of hardship, and and it means something, but that doesn't mean we have to drown it, you know. That doesn't mean we have to drown in it and live it every day of our lives and just become alcoholics and stay alcoholics and go into drugs and things like that. Because we've all suffered it, and some people have risen above it. A lot of our people have risen above that. They all had the same upbringing, but they've risen above it. And so that's proof that if you do go back, if you do follow the original laws and the natural laws of this, like this North America, because it's all the same. You have a sweat in California, and you have sweat in Ontario, sweat in BC, Dakotas, Apache. It's all the same. It's there's no lines. Yeah, we do different things because there's different grandfathers living there. Like, yeah, people down in Yaquis, they do peyote because there's the grandfathers that live around there. And the people in the East Coast, they have totally different traditions, but it's the same thing. It's to become a good human being. It's to share. It's to care. It's to not turn our backs on our mother's gifts. And one of our biggest gifts our mother gave us was sensitivity, was compassion, was caring, was warmth. I remember, as a little boy, that's really felt good sleeping beside your mother. So those are the things that gave us men. And so the mother is very important. Like the mother is the pinnacle of our world. Because without a mother, the family dies. Without a mother, even if a mother goes really wrong, like goes on drugs, the family still dies. And but if the mother's there, she's like a fire, she's she's a force within herself that has to be respected and has to be taken care of and has to be feared and has to be loved, because without her, the family dies. And this is why a woman can't become a soldier, right? Not in this land, maybe in another land they can, but not here, because these are the laws of the land. And the laws of the land have a purpose. Okay, so if a woman becomes a soldier and she dies, well, the family dies. But if a woman they can become a warrior metaphorically, yeah, but not a real physical warrior, because her life is too precious to our existence as a community. So, anyway, you know what? Now I'm starting to ramble.
Oh, hey,
I'm really sorry
buddy.
about that.
No, buddy, this is awesome. I have had some questions to like everyone. You just kept hitting off, with where we should go with more culture, more indigenous, and I love the fact that that's what brought you back. That's what kind of gave you some clarity.
Yeah,
That's what brought you out of the illness. I know myself that was going to be the question of what caused you to what was the catalyst to stop drinking, right? But to
mm,
going to sweats, that's beautiful. I know mine. I went
mm,
through the same similar journey. Spent time in AA, trying to figure things out and trying to figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing. Same with you. I started drinking very young. I think I was 12, 13, right? And I completely agree with how when you grow up with it, it's in your system and it's part of you, right? And it's so hard to beat it. And then it just brought me nothing but heartache in my later years. And my son was the one that was the catalyst for me. I broke my then girlfriend, now wife. I broke her heart too many times over all the booze and everything. But I remember stumbling home one night and I was puking and couldn't get up the stairs. And luckily enough, my son was sleeping and he didn't see me like that. And my wife was talking about it, and I was like, I made sure, had some talks in the mirror about, my son will never see me like that, right? So that was the catalyst that really broke it. That's all I needed. I sat in AA for so long, listening to people's stories and crying my own sob stories, but having just that one moment of realization and realizing that I wanted to break that cycle, that's all it took. And that's kind of never really looked back after that. So it's amazing to hear those stories. I really like that you broke that and you're able to snap out of that. And then it was Indigenous culture that did it for you, going back to that. And you nailed it. I mean, why we always try to reinvent the wheel on all this stuff. We've had ancestors for how many years that have survived, that thrived, right? Like it was
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful times, beautiful land, and yet we try to do all these crazy things to change that. So you summed a lot of that up perfectly, man. There's just, I guess I just got a few more questions and I'll leave you alone, buddy. Like one, my son, I won't live it down. So my son, we listen to you a lot, but he asked, what's your favorite song that you like to sing of your own music? What's your favorite song you like to sing?
Oh, the song I really love enjoying singing is oh, just before that, I'd say that essentially you made me remember something too about my children anyway. I actually was not drinking, and that was part of the reason I wanted to stop drinking, was because I had children, and I didn't want to set the example. I wanted them to have a choice of their own when they got big, instead of being the main example of drinking. And I did it for my children too. Is one of the other things. It's the same as you did. That was really worth to hear. But it's a good cause. But the favorite song is "Sail on Silver Moon." Definitely the best song I like singing the most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is there a bit of a story behind that one for you, or what's that?
No, it's totally from my imagination. I just found this a good melody, and I wonder if I have the skill to write music. I mean, write the lyrics for this. And well, actually, it's just from being inside the Barry, and you just see different people there. They have their different stories. And I saw this one woman just, she's just going, like, just dancing by herself, with the jukebox. And that really it was a strong image for me. And I wrote the story that there must be something, like she wasn't always like that. She must have a story. So I made a story for her.
That's awesome, buddy.
Sail on Silver Moon. Oh, that's Roll on Thunder. Sorry. Different song. I was wondering why you're looking at me. What the hell was that guy doing?
Hey, man, it's
No,
all good. I
no,
understand.
but that was Roll on Thunder. That's the story. That was a well written song. I like singing that. But I like singing Sail on Silver Moon. But Sail on Silver Moon that one I totally created. Actually, I wrote that song, and my producer, William Butler, he says, yeah, we're going to write more, write it again. So I wrote it again the second time it came out, Sail on Silver Moon, and that helps, like for the songwriters, if you have a song, if you write it again, you know, there's more work. It came out better, way better than what it would have been. Yeah,
Uh,
but
that's
that's total. But I'll tell you a story though. I was I wasn't drinking, but I was at this place where there's like a lot of truckers. It was my auntie's place. Her son was a trucker, and there's a bunch of truckers there, and they're like real big guys, and they're talking. They're real big trucker stories. They're not the fat truckers, they're the built truckers.
yeah.
So, but she got me to sing that song, and those guys are really touched by it. And they're like big guys that never show their emotion. And they were really touched by it. Like one of them was crying and stuff like that. So that was a beautiful moment for me. So, and I thought, well, it must really touch people then, if it's touching these guys in front of me. Yeah. So, but that it was actually, and William said to make that song about someplace in Canada. It's like pick Calgary because it rhymed, and I picked, yeah. Anyways,
That's awesome, man. And you nailed it. That's the big reason that I'm such a huge fan, right? It's just your music really does invoke a lot of emotion, especially around like, Western Canada or well, anywhere in the world really, but just the way we grew up, I feel like a lot of those stories hit and you can really I put myself in a lot of those stories that you talk about or that you sing about, and it's like I can really picture myself in those, right? And it's quite interesting. It's very touching. So
yeah. I
it's
think
awesome.
I think we do like all those stories. I do, live them, but not in that way. The story is written or the song is written, but the emotion is taken from an experience that I had, and things like that. And yeah. So
No,
yeah.
that's great. And then it's funny enough, one more with my son because we always drive around. We listen to you lots of times too, and we really got into the song "Warrior," right? Because he's a funny guy. He's only 6, so I talk about him like he's an old man, but he's a fighter too. He's been fighting for a few years, doing jujitsu tournaments and things, and that's always a song we listen to before any fights or before training. He's always listening to "Warrior," and he's singing along, and it's pretty special. But do you have anything behind that song as far as where that came from or how that came about?
It's just like every man, thinks he's this and thinks he's that, and he is that. But sometimes people don't think that. Yeah. But the thing is that yeah, it just had a really perfect melody. Uh, it just had a really good melody, a real strong melody, and I just wrote. The thing about it is that your son is 6 years old, but a lot of my people that like my music is the little people that are 6 years old. Like they use the music in daycares and stuff like that. And, it's the thing about it, and I attribute this to my experience in the sweat lodges too. That's all. That album is it came back to life. It's the music has come back to life. Like I'm a warrior. That was used like in 19. There was this tuba, this wrestler. He used to use it, and the Tuba City Warriors used it too. As their song, like to give them oomph. Yeah. But Melvin McGee was the name of the wrestler that used to use that too. He was a professional wrestler, and I got a call from Tuba City too once that their high school team used it as their team when they go out in the field. So yeah, it's and 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 so that album, like it it's as popular today as it was. I'd say even more popular, but I think that is because of because of TikTok and because of YouTube and because the internet, right? So that's really breathed a lot of life back into it, because a lot of I go anywhere, like anywhere I go anywhere, and there's like kids want to take pictures, young men and young women want to take pictures that are like 20, 25, 26, 30. It's just all ranges. Like it's just it's but I think it's because of the grandfathers. Myself, I think it's because of you know when you suffer and when you give and when you but it has to be like from the heart. you know it can't be like a lot of times you'll go into a place, yeah, even a First Nations organization, like say like SIFC, right? First Nations University, right? And they'll have all these respect things and they'll have all these different things, but they don't practice them at all. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what those mean. You know, they they've never been to a sweat. They've never been out in the bush. They never suffered. But they have all this coffee table conversations. The 12 TB teachings. There's no such thing as the TB teachings. Never was such a thing as TB teachings. It's used to hold up a certainty. But they want to categorize and they want to label it and they want to, act white, and we got all these things. But the thing is, all those things that you know this too, is you have to experience them. If you don't experience them, you're not going to learn a darn thing, So, but that's what they don't do at the universities. Even though a university is supposed to be a leading edge of our existence, but it's not. I mean, in the academic world, yeah, it is, but not so much if it's not practiced, if it's not experienced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
No,
my
I
discussion.
agree wholeheartedly on that statement for sure. That's a big push for myself is trying to get a lot of anybody, a lot of youth if I can, but especially it's the Indigenous youth and Native youth, just because of my background and the way my coming up has been through this. But trying to get more people into apprenticeships, not being especially with their education system for most on in northern communities or any communities really, but a lot of people are shying away from apprenticeships or working or anything like that, right? But that's where you learn. That's the experience. You
Yeah.
learn things and you get,
Yeah. That's
because yeah,
right.
you can talk about it all day, right? But till you actually do something, it doesn't matter. You could talk to me for days, which I appreciate, but about how to play guitar or how to sing, but it doesn't make me a good guitar player or singer, that's for sure. Uh no, man. A couple other ones, and then like I say, I'll leave you be. But you mentioned
Mhm.
Juno, your Juno award there before. What was that like? Like, what was that like in the late '90s, early 2000s when you're traveling all over, you're winning awards, and like I say, even being on stage that night, winning that award, like you did touch on it, but it just felt like everything you did, all your visions, just kind of came together, and that was in that moment.
Yeah, it did actually. And you know, even though I kind of knew I was going to win it, and even the reporters outside were saying, how does it feel to know, like the native reporters at that time, how does it feel to know you're going to win it, And well, I didn't know, but they knew, but I didn't know. And I remember they had this really, it was at the Astrodome, and they had this really elegant dinner there. And it was a way lot better than they do the journals now for Aboriginal people. It was really elegant, really. They had the ice sculpture and everything like that. And there was a lot, and of course you were with a lot of different other artists, and you were with the music industry in itself. Uh, so I was very nervous. I was so nervous because I just wanted it so bad. I was so nervous. And they served this meal, and I was looking at my meal, and everybody's enjoying. My chief is there, Chief Austin Bill. He's such a good chief. But he came there too. My son Lance was there, and I think Danny was sick at the time. Brenda was there, my wife. And anyway, so we were all sitting around. Oh, the chief's wife was there too. And my brother Vernon was there too. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so we were all sitting around, and I was so stressed out. I was just like, I was just so nervous, and they brought the food, and I tried to eat, but then it just tastes like paper. In fact, I was so nervous. I felt like puking up. I felt like going to the washroom, so I ran to the washroom, and inside the washroom, like everybody's just like, whoop, everybody's just in there like snorting up and stuff like that. They were actually snorting up in there. Well, I guess that's not a big thing these days. Anyways, they were
Hey,
snorting
that's
up,
all right. I understand. Yeah.
and and I didn't want to snort. I didn't want to go get sick in front of them because then they would have made fun of me. So I didn't. I didn't get sick. I just went back to the table, and then when they called my name, they called the album first, "Falling Down," and I thought somebody else won. Right? I thought in my mind they called the name first, but they called the album first, and I thought somebody else won. But then I heard my name, and then I went up, and I went up the wrong way. I brought my brother up, Vernon, because he played with me in a lot of stages, and he helped me in the album, do the backups and stuff like that, and work and singing like in the studio. So he was really really supportive. Anyway, so yeah, so then we went on the stage, and then I got the award, and I thanked all the people like Danny Musco and grandfathers and everybody, and uh, and then they went back to my table. I was sitting at my table, and then they came. They were calling me over there. I wasn't supposed to go back to my table. I was supposed to go backstage into the media room, right? So, so I dragged out there, and and then they took me and Vernon because I brought Vernon up with me, and they took us down to the parking lot of the Astrodome, and they had this rickshaw with a person holding it, and they took us all the rickshaw took us all the way to the media room. And there's all these cameras and things like that, and you answer questions, and that was it. That was amazing. Yeah. The album, the very first album that's really popular right now, Freedom. Um, like the second album is a production piece of work. It's pure genius. All the songs are written well, they're presented well, and it's a masterpiece. Yeah. Anyways, but the first album is like more of a common person album. Like it's it's just it's more popular, right? It's like but the time that I went into Juno, it was this I was going up against Buffy Sainte Marie, and she put forward all of re-released songs like Universal Soldier and all those things.
Yeah.
So I knew I wouldn't be able to compete against $1 million productions like that. So studio out of so I didn't have any kind of things I was going to win. But the album that year, the very next year, it became the biggest export out of Canada of an independent artist. So, and even right now, it's like in the top 30% every month of albums being bought, and being sold, being downloaded, and stuff like that of independent artists. So, SOCAN's always giving me reward letters. So, yeah, but that was like 10 years of songwriting, the album. And right now, I'm putting together an album right now. I was going to try and release it in January, um, but hopefully it'll be released before, John McLeod, who was a program manager for NBC Radio in Manitoba, or is it? Yeah, NBC. And I told him I'm going to have it ready before the show on March the 13th at the Burton Cummings theater, because they have this big thing every year. There's like about 1,000 people attending it. It's like it's a big talent show. It's like apparently they've been doing it for years. I didn't even know, but of course I don't live in Manitoba, and they present the best talents and things like that. And then, but this year they're going to have groundbreakers, which is me and Pizza Cola. Because Pizza Cola is another person that actually first one. He wrote the first Indian hit ever, and he said one time, because we were playing on a stage in Minnesota, I think about 5 years ago, together, and but that's where he comes from, Net Lake. So, anyways, he says to me, he I told him that Keith, wrote the first Indian hit ever, and I'm really proud to know him. And then so Keith gets on stage, and he says, yeah, I did riding in my Indian car, and I was just enjoying the moment, and I was driving through uh, Arizona. Yeah, I was driving through Arizona about 2 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden, I hear this song, Love Me Strong. And then I said, what the heck's this song? So then he heard that song. And, but he's just joking around. He was just pretending that he got mad. But he was a really good guy. We're really good friends. We don't hardly ever see each other, but whenever we see each other, we're really good friends. That's a good thing about musicians, eh? You're good friends forever because you hardly ever see each other.
Yeah, that's true. Eh? You don't have to mess around with all the garbage, but yeah, you've all been through similar situations, so hey, you just want to talk and hang out and have fun. That's pretty deadly, man. I was gonna ask you if you had any current projects that you were going to discuss, but so you do have a new album you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, this album is that I'm making right now. It's going to be more in the same line as the first album, and but of course it'll have more. It'll be technically better, than the first album. The first album was good. I mean, it was a nice res album. you know, Sometimes you just, I don't know. I don't want to say anything, but it wasn't really, it wasn't really good technically. You know, like not falling down was good technically, and this one will be good technically.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Are you
Yeah.
recording it in Saskatoon or where are you recording it?
Well, I don't know where I'm recording it. I'm trying to find a place to record it. Like, I'm thinking about remixing "Love Me Strong," re-recording it and calling it "Love Me Strong Remix," but just presenting it in a more professional way. So I don't have to pay any royalties to the Sound of America Records because they own the royalties to "Love Me Strong." And but I'm looking for that song to be really well done, and then
Mhm.
re-release it, uh, but to promote it to hire a production promotional team to promote it on the regular runways. Because if Indians like a song, other people are going to like it. You know, like the public's going to like it. Because "Love Me Strong" is anybody that likes anybody that knows about love likes "Love Me Strong." Anybody's been hurt loves me strong. Anybody that is sorry, they like "Love Me Strong." Yeah, and so it's probably like forever. As long as there's love, as long as there's "Love Me Strong."
Hey man, I would probably get in trouble if I didn't ask. Like where did that story come from? Then we can wrap this up. But where did was there a story behind
Oh
Love Me
yeah,
Strong? Were you getting
no,
was Brenda throwing a vase at you or what happened?
no, no. That song is about my friend Denny Norman, who's played lead on "Love Me Strong." Denny Norman, he lives in Cold Lake right now. He was having problems with his girlfriend, and one night he comes to my place. It's like a blizzard, right? And he comes in there and he says, "Can I stay here for a couple of days, Chester?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "What's wrong?" He says, "Oh, my old lady, like she just gets mad and she throws things around. Even though I know her, she just treats me like, so mean." Anyway, so uh, and that's where that line, "I love her even though when she's not doing things wrong," it's actually about Denny's life. But the thing is too, and when I was my first wife was Jane. Uh, the reason why I put Jane in there, "Your soda falls like pain, your soda falls like rain," is because Jane is the only thing that rhymed with pain. I was trying to think of it if a name would rhyme with it, but it's just a rhyming thing. But yeah. So, anyways, getting back to the other thing. Yeah. So I have some really good songs written, and but I'm just trying to find a studio that's like economical for the songs that are going to go on the radios, First Nations on the First Nations country, and radio friendly production for Love Me Stone. So if you
That's
know any studios, give me a call.
Hey man, that's awesome, Chester. Yeah, that's no joke, buddy. Yeah, they're definitely out there. So, well, again, I just want to be respectful. Thanks for your time, and I really appreciate this. And man, I could literally listen to you talk all day about some of these stories and some of your past. So it's pretty awesome. But where can people find more information about you, any upcoming gigs, and to even to book you?
Oh, that's a good idea. That's good you thought about that. Yeah, because yeah, they're I'm starting to do a lot some more shows now, but basically the way a person get rid of me is at my uh, office, Chester Knight's Panic Bistro. Um, and the number is, or you can go online, look for that number, Chester Knight's Panic Bistro. Uh, the number, anyways, is 306 9, oh, 306 491 2501. 306 491 2501. Yeah. And Brenda has access to me 24 hours a day. And also to, if you're in Winnipeg, come and check us out at the Burton Trumans Theater. Me and Lance will be there because Lance really does love me stone perfect. And we'll be there. So if you go travel through Winnipeg, come to the on May 13th.
Awesome, buddy. Well, again, thank you. I really appreciate your time. I respect you for this, and I really, really loved everything you're doing, and it's been great. So thank you, and I appreciate all the stories.
With this interview, I could have, made it the usual shallow interview, that usually don't have enough time to say what you want to say. You just want to kind of promote everything really fast, right? But this time I thought, well, since we have more time, I'll be more forthcoming and more honest. And so this is why I really enjoyed talking with you and giving me the opportunity to talk about my father and my adopted father and my family. I really appreciate that. If you're ever in Saskatoon, stop by the house.
Oh,
You
man.
know,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I will talk to you soon, Chester. Thank you.